Good good morning and welcome to a press conference by the Democratic Labour Party. We first apologize for the slightly delayed start, but we have an informative press conference scheduled for you today. First on the agenda, we will introduce one of our recently ratified candidates, and then we will have statements by the political leader, Ralph Thorne, on issues regarding crime in Barbados. Let me start by introducing our candidate for the constituency of Christchurch East Central, Mr. Quincy Jones. Mr. Quincy Jones, JP, is a dynamic and accomplished Barbadian leader in his mid-30s who brings a strong blend of legal acumen, educational expertise, cultural advocacy, and deep-rooted political commitment to national service. A proud graduate of Dighton Griffith Secondary School, where he served as head boy and valedictorian, he is also a former Barbados cadet, where he learned the values of discipline, service, and patriotism, qualities that have shaped his journey as a servant leader. Quincy continued his academic journey with an associate degree in geography and sociology from the Barbados Community College. He holds a Bachelor of Laws and a Master of Laws with a specialization in public law, in addition to degrees as Masters of Science and Bachelors of Science, Political Science, and Sociology. His qualifications also include a diploma in education, postgraduate diploma in educational leadership, and certification in restorative practices, Chinese language, and broadcasting. In the political sphere, Quincy has demonstrated unwavering dedication to the Democratic Labour Party. He has served as vice president of the Young Democrats and sat on all major governing bodies of the party, including both the Executive Council and the General Council. He was the zonal head of elections for the Christchurch zone, where he has played a key role in organizing and mobilizing grassroots electoral strategies. Currently, he serves as the chairman of the DLP annual conference, a position he has held with distinction since 2024. Quincy's leadership extends into the cooperative sector, where he has served on the supervisory committee and now as second vice president of the Barbados Teachers Cooperative Credit Union, promoting transparency and member engagement. In 2021, he was elected president of the Law Society, leading the transition to online legal education during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. As a justice of the peace, Quincy has served on the boards of both Commermere School and Queen's College, contributing to education, policy, and institutional leadership. He is the founder of the Trident Charity, which serves communities across Barbados with a focus on youth and vulnerable populations. A registered cultural practitioner, Quincy has long been involved in cultural development, having led the Youth Explosion Band and now heads the Zenobia Mass Band, reaffirming his commitment to youth empowerment through arts. Quincy is a proud and loyal supporter of the Democratic Labour Party, a passionate advocate for people-centered development, and a firm believer in the values of community, progress, and purpose. His personal motto is inspired by the words of Nelson Mandela. It always seems impossible until it's done. In his spare time, he enjoys traveling, reading African and Caribbean literature, playing golf, and his saxophone. Let us welcome the Democratic Labour Party's candidate for Christchurch East Central, Mr. Quincy Jones, JP, a leader grounded in service, ready to represent, and committed to building a better Barbados for all. Welcome, Quincy Jones.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone, again.
Good morning.
I stand before you today with immense pride and honor and a deep gratitude and a humble heart as I officially accept the nomination to serve as the Democratic Labour Party's for the Christchurch East Central in the upcoming general elections. To our party leader, the executive and the general council, and my fellow comrades, my faithful friends of this great party, my family, my friends, and my co-workers, thank you. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for trusting my vision and for standing with me on this journey to lift our beloved community. To the people of Christchurch East Central, this is not just another campaign. This is a movement. This is a calling. Because Christchurch East Central is not just where we live, it is our home. It is where our children take their first steps, where families build communities and memories, where seniors pass on the stories of our heritage, and where hardworking men and women strive each day to build a better life. It is the place that shaped me, and now I pledge to give it my all to listen, to serve, and to lead. Our campaign is rooted in the belief that every child deserves opportunities, every senior deserves dignity, and every citizen deserves to feel safe, valued, and heard. Whether it's improving our schools, creating job opportunities for our youth, empowering small businesses, or making our communities cleaner and safer, I will be your voice, your advocate, and your partner. But I cannot do this alone. We must work together. Churches, schools, small businesses, civil groups, and every household in Christchurch is central. We must restore a sense of pride and purpose in our neighborhood. We must bring back that spirit of unity and service. But because when we treat our community like home, we take better care of it. We invest in it, we protect it, and we build it. Before I go any further, I wish to take this opportunity and sincere thank you to the former candidates who have stood in this very footsteps, each of them leaving behind their own unique imprint on this constituency. Their dedication, their sacrifice, and service have helped to shape the path we now walk. I honor their contributions and I build upon the foundations they have laid with deep respect and humility. So I invite you to walk with me, not just this campaign, but through the hard work that comes after. Let us knock on doors, listen to each other's stories, and come up with solutions together. Let us build a holistic constituency that reflects the best of who we are. Christchurch East Central, this is our time, this is our movement, and this is our home. Let us rise together, and thank you, and may God bless Christchurch East Central.
We wish to welcome Mr. Quincy Jones on board as a candidate for the Democratic Labour Party in Christchurch East Central, and it shows that the Democratic Labour Party is doing the work it needs to do in terms of moving forward, selecting our candidates, putting them in place, and we are serious in terms of our commitment to the people of Barbados because we recognize that this country needs a change in course and direction. Right now, we will have a presentation by the leader of the opposition, Mr. Ralph Thorne, K.C., MP, Member of Parliament for Christchurch South, as he discussed issues relating to crime and other pertinent matters in Barbados. Over to you, Mr. Thorne.
Thank you very much, Senator Worrell. Good morning to all Barbadians here and in the diaspora. Good morning to the media that have graced us with their presence this morning. I want to briefly, well, before I do that, let me welcome Quincy, an excellent young man, to this team of excellent young persons. And that is with the hope that you will continue the good work that you've been doing so far. We have formally welcomed Quincy this morning, but Quincy has been across the constituency of Christchurch East Central, and he's been doing amazing work. He's been doing work among the young people and among the not so young people. So Quincy, you're clearly an asset to this team, and we feel that the party is in good hands under your stewardship. So welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. The chairman here mentioned the issue of crime, and we don't want Barbadians to be distracted by the debate that is presently going on, this debate in relation to government's public relations exercise, this invitation to us to sit with the government and for us to tell the government what we've been telling them over the last year. We consider that it is a mere public relations exercise. It is an opportunity for government to relinquish its responsibility towards the public in terms of a legislative agenda and a policy agenda towards resolving crime. The issue is not a public relations exercise. The issue in this country is the government's inability and unwillingness to deal with the question of crime. And we have not seen a Barbados in which the citizens are enduring the kind of fear that they are enduring. That's the issue in Barbados. The issue is not any public relations exercise along which the government wishes to take us. Let us come to the real issues. Just 24 hours ago, several members of the Barbados Police Service asked us to be their voice in a moment of helplessness and peril in relation to this government's treatment of them. A lot of police officers have been asked to give up one of their off days. And we understand and appreciate that because we have had so many incidences of crime, that we would understand why the police service would be asked to make a sacrifice. And we commiserate with them and we support them in making that sacrifice. But here's the government not returning the favor to them. Several police officers are owed money by this government, and this government continues to refuse to pay them. Since last year, during the budget speech given by the Prime Minister at the time, given at the time by the Prime Minister, she's still Prime Minister, a promise was made to the constables of this country that they would be given a new designation called senior constable. That was a year ago, February, March 2024. The government breached that promise to those several senior constables, 20 years and up. Can you imagine that there are constables in our police service who've given good service to this country and they have never been promoted at all? And we advocated their cause, and the government at the time thought that they should give them the designation, and along with the designation, increase their salary. They did not. The St. James North by-election came along, and on the platform, we fought the cause of the police again. We fought the cause of the police officers again. During that election, the government responded by saying that within a week, they would receive the designation and that they would receive the increased pay. Barbadians here and abroad, government has failed to meet that promise. Government has broken that promise in relation to the police officers. They have not received the promotion and they have not been given that increased pay. So this public relations exercise is not the issue. The issue is the fear that Barbadians feel in relation to the rising crime that is afflicting this country, and the issue is the maltreatment of our loyal police officers in this country. They're fighting crime, and the government continues to refuse to meet their demands, and not only meet a demand, but to honor their rights in promoting them and paying them the salary of senior constable. And furthermore, beyond those particular police officers, the government owes other police officers money, and the government is refusing to pay them. So please, public, do not be distracted by this public relations exercise that the government intends to carry out. Do not be distracted by it. And on the question of money, and I'm going to relate this to the rights of the police officers and to the rights of public servants generally. You would have heard this week in Parliament that this government claimed that it was exiting the arrangement with the IMF. They claim that. And they owe the IMF money at the interest rate of 4%. And Barbadians are now horrified that they have gone and borrowed $500 million US to exit the IMF arrangement. So they have borrowed money more expensively to exit an arrangement which is cheaper. Now that is financial madness. But sometimes we have to go beneath the surface and to ask, why is the government behaving the way that it is behaving? Now, during his presentation, that is the presentation of the Minister, Ryan Strawn, he indicated who was the team that went on this, they call it a road tour, in search of these monies. The question of bonds, having people purchase bonds at the high interest rate of 8%. The economists in this country, the good economists in this country, are alarmed. They're shocked that government would pursue a loan so expensively to exit an arrangement which was cheaper. People are asking why. But we say that we are honest voices for the people. And Ryan Strong said to the parliament that that delegation included White Oak. The name of White Oak is not a name that Barbadians will learn to love, because White Oak claimed to have negotiated a structural adjustment program in which the NIS was deprived of $1.3 billion. So the name White Oak is not a name that is met with much favor among Barbadians, but they were paid $27 million US, and we are going to repeat that because the Financial Times of London complained that the fee was excessively high, that it was too expensive for Barbadians to bear. $27 million US was their fee, and that fee came from the taxpayers of this country. Here is the name White Oak featuring again. Brian Strong admitted that in that delegation to Boston, New York, and London, in search of these monies, White Oak went along. We don't believe for a minute that they did it voluntarily. We believe that they were paid a fee. And Barbadians must now be told by this government what is White Oak's fee on a loan for $500 million US. $500 million US, $1 billion Barbados dollars. Normally, these transactions, when they attract a fee, that fee is a percentage of the loan. I want the government of Barbados, we want the government of Barbados to tell us how much has been and will be paid to White Oak on this transaction, which involves Barbadians being asked to sacrifice $500 million US. Tell us, what is the fee being paid to White Oak? We found out by chance that they were paid $27 million US on the other matter. Tell the people of Barbados how much White Oak will be paid on this transaction. And if White Oak will be paid millions of dollars on this transaction, tell the members of the Barbados Police Service why White Oak will be paid and they will not be paid. You see, the government's mismanagement of this economy is reflecting an abuse of power. Everything that this government does reflects the abuse of power and the abuse of the rights of the citizens of this country. White Oak is of no greater value to Barbadians than the most lowly constable in the Barbados Police Service. Pay the members of the Barbados Police Service the monies that you owe them. Over the next few weeks and possibly months, they're going to be asked to make the sacrifice of one off day being given into active service. And they're owed lots of monies. Pay them the monies. If White Oak has to make the sacrifice, so be it. For one, I do not believe that it was necessary to have White Oak alone. This country has several economists, and this is something we've complained about before. This country has economists, it has accountants, it has tax advisors. And I'm going to repeat that. This government took up $2 million and gave to a tax advisor, I believe from France or Italy. When we have people around here in this country who can do these jobs, the government has to repatriate skills that are available in this country. Our professionals are being marginalized in favor of people who are doing the jobs that Barbadians can do. We are not going to resile from our criticisms of a government that continues to treat Barbadians with disrespect and disdain. On this question, and we are relating all of these topics, on this question of crime, we did not get the chance to hear what the Deputy Prime Minister said in recent days in relation to the question of crime, and Barbadians were appalled at the statements made. Do we need to sit with the government and tell the government what Ms. Bradshaw said to Barbadians last week? That they now go from the family. And Ms. Bradshaw said that one must understand the role that gang leaders, that's the term she used, or drug lords, something like that, that one must, she spoke, in my view, sympathetically towards people who are involved in illegal activity. And she sought to say that they are a benefit to the community, that they provide material goods. And then she went on to criticize the church. That's Miss Bradshaw. Understand the amount of social and community work that is done by churches in this country. And I'm going to be invidious enough to name one. The Catholic Church runs a breakfast program for children at Gemmont's Lane, the now infamous Gemmont's Lane. They run a breakfast program there. There are several churches involved in social and community work. But Miss Bradshaw's statement reflected the contempt that this government has for the church. And we will defend the church, and we will defend the work and the quality of work that the church has been doing. Look, the incident that grew such alarm was the incident last Sunday when a group of young men rampaged across this country. The culmination of the act of rampage was at Cayville. Cayville I know very well, right there by Montgomery. And a man was shot and killed at that location. And I'm still on to the government's relationship with the church and the government's relationship with people who are involved in criminal activity. All Barbadians now know that this government was providing money for persons involved in crime. We know that. But, you know, the government must withdraw from that position, and the government must find itself respecting not only persons involved in illegal activity, but the government must find itself respecting institutions that are involved not only in saving souls, but saving material lives. And we extend our commendation to the churches of this country that continue not only to save lives morally and spiritually and so on, but to save lives materially. I come back to Cayville just to demonstrate the point. Now, that young man was shot at Montgomery in Cayville. The persons who shot him riding on motorcycles, I know the area very well. They would have ridden those motorcycles past the Jehovah's Witness Church, going down on the left. Obliquely opposite on the right is the Nazarene Church. Further down the street, 100 yards or so, would have been my beloved Cayville Wesleyan Holiness Church. You go around the bend, Christ the King Anglican Church. You go down the street again, the Whitehall Methodist Church. A little farther down the road, you come to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And I believe there was a small church, I don't know if it is still in operation, towards the end of that street. I hope I haven't left out any, but I know that area very, very well. And those young men who shot that man would have ridden past several churches that have made a contribution in that locality over many, many years. But of course, the government chooses to justify what they must now call the social and community work of persons involved in criminal activity and to condemn the churches. We come here this morning to uplift and to congratulate those churches in that Cayville area that have done marvelous work over the many years of their existence, and to tell the government that the time has come to respect the churches and to respect the decent and upstanding citizens of this country. The government is called upon not to condemn us for our justified position and not sitting with them to tell them what we have been telling them for many years, but to explain, to speak to Miss Velma Newton. And we have not spoken to Miss Velma Newton, but what Miss Velma Newton has said has spoken volumes. Miss Velma Newton, among the many criticisms she made of government's advisory council, is that it is clear that some people are exploiting the issue of crime to make money. Obviously, I think the references to the peace program and other initiatives taken by this government. Why does this government want interest groups and political parties to sit with them and to tell them what we've been telling them over the last year? that there are several approaches, several broad approaches towards dealing with crime in this country. The military and the government participates in the military because the government sits, I believe, through the Prime Minister on the National Security Council. There's the legislative approach, and the government has continuously failed to come to the Parliament with legislation which confronts this issue of crime. When the Attorney General brought the Bail Act to Parliament this year, he confessed at the beginning of his speech that he brought this Bail Act in response to a call that I had made for a Bail Act which makes it more difficult for recidivists, murderous recidivists, to get bail after they've committed a subsequent murder. That Bail Act, I've said it before and I'll say it again, does little more than the previous Bail Act, except that it is just extending itself over a few more pages. The problem has continued. The problem of recidivism in the context of crime has not been resolved by that Bail Act. That Bail Act has not solved the problem. And Barbadians are wondering why this government, I repeat it, is refusing to pass further legislation. And I've not come here this morning to repeat that this government is failing to pass other legislation, including anti-gang legislation. Instead, I've said this before and I'm going to say it again, Barbadians need to understand that rather than use its legislative power, this government is blaming families. And it has gone from blaming families now to blaming the church. We are not going to stick with the government and say to them in private what we are saying to the public. If we go and sit with them, that is what we're going to say to them, that they are breaching their responsibility, they are derelict in their public duty to come to a parliament with legislation that is capable of curbing rampant crime in this country. There's the socio-economic, and this government is mismanaging this economy, because when you look at that question of the loan, you take $500 million US dollars at 8% to pay off the IMF at 4%. That is financial and fiscal madness. Do we need to sit with the government privately and say that to them? We don't intend to. We come to the people of this country. We come to the people of this country with reason and with a sense of justice and with a sense of what is right. There's the cultural. And we said earlier this week that this government's participation in the cultural activity of this country is hurting not only the average Barbadian, but it is hurting children. The problem of delinquency has now seeped into the primary schools, and government's academic agenda is disadvantaging our children down to the level of primary school. You ask any teacher, and they will tell you that the experience of teaching in primary schools used to be mild, and you used to be dealing with innocence. This government is now managing a country, not only economically, but culturally, in which moral values have been lost at the primary level. And therefore, we accuse this government of having failed in relation to crime and social disorder. They have failed militarily. They have failed legislatively. They have failed in relation to their mismanagement of this country socioeconomically, and their cultural management of this country has placed and pushed young people into a context of social and moral decadence. This government must now answer to the people of Barbados. This government must now be stopped in their tracks, in their efforts to distract persons away from the real issues, the real issue of their unwillingness and ability to deal with crime, and to attract the people to the issue of a public relations exercise. That public relations exercise will do nothing for the people of Barbados. The last public relations exercise that this government embarked on was a few years ago when they wasted $500,000 on a firm in New York to come up with a tourism slogan. $500,000 US dollars. And they set up an 18-man committee to come up with a new slogan. 2 or 3 years later, nothing has happened. It was a public relations exercise in which this country sacrificed $500,000 US dollars. Wasted down the drain. Public relations exercise. Nothing. And that is this government's record. So why would any political party that has been publicizing and amplifying the issues of this government's unfitness over the last few years, why would we allow ourselves to be distracted by another public relations campaign? Government, tell the people of Barbados what happened to that committee. 18 persons set up to come up with a slogan. And tell the people of Barbados, confess to the people of Barbados that you wasted $500,000 US on a slogan that cannot now be used. This government is wasting the money of the people of Barbados. We've come here today to tell this government to treat the police with the respect that they deserve. On the next occasion, we are coming back to tell the government that the nurses in this country need to be well treated. We are coming back to tell this government about the maltreatment of the prison officers in this country. I spoke to one at a supermarket yesterday, and the prison officers in this country are also being maltreated by this government. There are several public servants in this country who are so intimidated by the abuse of governmental power. Some are going home on sick leave, some are taking early retirement. This is a tyrannical government. And we say that during the budget reply, and we mean it. This government is maltreating the public service of this country. Next time we come back, nurses, we're coming to defend you as well. Police officers, I hope and I trust that we have given advocacy to your cause today, but we are coming back. Media, you can ask us questions, and thank you very much for your presence here this morning.
Yes, opposition leader.
Yes, please.
One question for me to start. One would the refrain has been uttered that crime is a non-partisan issue, and we all, I guess, could agree with the sentiment that sometimes optics of unity sometimes might go a long way in showing the country that there is a unified front on this issue. What would you say to the argument that you going and sitting and having talks with government would have provided such optics that it's a non-partisan issue and it's all hands on deck in addressing this matter?
We are not into optics. We are not into optics. We are into substance. And we have told this government repeatedly what the government needs to do. That there are 4 approaches: the military, the legislative, the socio-economic, and the cultural. We have opposed this government in relation to its peace program. We have opposed this government in relation to its disrespect of the police service. Why should we now engage in optics? We are not about optics. We are about substance. We are about responding and treating to the real problem of crime in this country, sitting with the government behind closed doors and coming out and taking a photograph for the benefit of the nation and Starcom. And Barbados today is not going to solve any problems in this country. We are not into optics. And I'll tell you this, I am the one who used the term partisan. The government was saying all along that it is not a political issue. I had to remind them that what they meant was that it is not a partisan issue. It is not a partisan issue because all of us are affected by crime. But optics, these people you see sitting before you, we are about substance, we are about competence, we are about integrity in our public life. We are not into optics. And I'm really glad that you use that word optics. Optics does nothing for anybody except to put up a good face, almost literally. We have no intention of walking out of any room from behind closed doors, shaking hands for the purpose of optics and for the purpose of a public relations campaign to fool the people of this country that something has been happening behind closed doors. Ask Velma Newton what was happening. Miss Velma Newton, what was happening behind closed doors? The Sunday Sun last week told us what was happening behind closed doors. And the Sunday Sun last week told us that optics do not help anyone. We are not into optics, we are into substance.
As it relates to the IMF loan,
yes,
the money was borrowed to pay off. Again, I'm not economist, but the argument could be made that with borrowing that money, maybe albeit at higher interest rates. At least it one demonstrated that the economy has rebounded to the point that they're able to pay off early. And two, it may have it, and again, I'm being devil's advocate. I'm not saying that this is my position.
That's right.
Right. And also the removal of the IMF conditionalities that some may have considered austere. What would you say to that argument if put forward to you?
I would say to you, Mr. Mounsey, that in the 1980s, when the Tom Adams government entered an arrangement with the IMF, it repaid the IMF from monies that were locally generated by this economy. It went into an arrangement, and 18 months later, the government repaid the money, not with a loan. The government repaid with monies that were generated by this economy. I can say to you that in the 1990s, the government of Sir Lloyd Erskine Sandiford entered into an arrangement with the IMF, and some 14 months later, the government repaid the loan, not with a loan. It repaid with monies that were generated locally. This one is different. This one is fundamentally different. This is the first time that a government is exiting an IMF arrangement with a loan. And what is scandalous is that the loan is at a higher interest rate than the existing IMF loan. And what is even more scandalous is the likelihood that out of those monies we are paying, we, the Barbadian public, we are being called upon to pay a large fee to White Oak. Now, if White Oak has done it voluntarily, gratuitously, I congratulate them. But let the government tell the people of Barbados whether White Oak is working for free. Let the government of Barbados tell the people if they're not working for free, if they've worked on a commission, what is the quantum of that commission? Let the government say that. It is clear. When I listened to the Prime Minister a few weeks ago, it was clear to me that there was no genuine exit from the IMF program. Again, that is a public relations exercise. It is clear that the government has not put this country in a position economically to exit the arrangement. And that is why the Prime Minister used the term that they're on what? Speed dial. Now, the Prime Minister should be really ashamed to use the word speed dial in relation to anything other than what we know about. Other than what we know about. So it is clear that the government was not ready nor able to exit that program, and that they've had to borrow money unprecedented in the financial and fiscal affairs of this country. They're not ready to exit, and they go and borrow money at 8%. Look, the economist at KFIL is criticizing this government for that loan. And all the other credible economists across Barbados and the Caribbean and across the world are wondering what madness this is. It is unprecedented. All the other countries over the globe have been coming out of these arrangements with locally generated monies. This government has been borrowing money, and this government has been borrowing money, and it has not been invested into the economy. It has not been used for developmental purposes. Developmental purposes meaning that it has not invested in the people. It has not invested in projects which will grow this economy. But the government is walking around telling people that this economy has grown. You've heard me say before, and I will repeat it. The growth is not real. The growth is artificial. The growth is inflationary. This is an economy, and the poorest person in this country knows what inflation is doing to them, and what inflation must also be doing to the GDP of this country. That the GDP appears to be expanding, but it is a numbers game. Because prices are higher, because things are more expensive, they are calculating inflation and calling it GDP growth. It is not GDP growth. This economy is in serious trouble. And all this government is doing by taking these loans, this government is postponing crisis until such time as they will be out of office. If the people in Barbados really understand what is happening, this government's days are numbered. And so they are postponing this country's financial crisis to a future government. And we are not daunted, but they're postponing this country's financial crisis to a future generation. Little children in primary school will be called upon to work in a country that will be burdened by the debt that the government is incurring at present. That is the situation we are in. There has been no genuine exit from the IMF arrangement. And that is why they're talking about speed dial. They're on speed dial.
But is there anything to be said about the avoidance of tighter fiscal measures that would
The what?
the avoidance of tighter fiscal measures, wage freezes, wage the hiring freezes, etc. Is there anything to be said about the avoidance of that?
Senator Struck, Senator. He's right.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. The messaging from the government says to the public of Barbados that the economy is growing, that there have been months of consecutive economic growth, that we are at the lowest employment levels ever in the history of Barbados, and that we have local investment, there's a construction boom, and that they are seeing foreign direct investment in this country. But if that is their three benchmarks that they're using to say that the economy is doing well, then why should they have to borrow money to repay loans?
Precisely.
The other argument that the government has continually made is that fiscal space. They want money, more money to do things in Barbados. How much space is enough? And that is the question that the Democratic Labour Party has been asking. We are accustomed to having, I think, 12 weeks of reserves. The government has 7 months of reserves. The government boasts that they were a pioneer in putting debt clauses in the debt management, to improve or to strengthen debt management. And we agree with that. It's a good initiative. So they have 7 months of reserves, they have debt clauses, and then they have a debt to GDP that is now 50% lower than it was 7 years ago. That is space.
Correct.
How much more space does this government need? What they're doing does not match up to what they are saying, because the government senators came to the chamber on Wednesday to approve for the country to borrow at 8% to pay off a loan that is less than 4% and one that is 6.5%, which is likely to cost taxpayers at least $60 to $75 million over 4 years.
Precisely.
And that is why they do not have the money to pay the police.
Correct.
That is why they do not have the money to pay the nurses. That is why they do not have the money to do anything in this country
They have it
to
to pay white
benefit
coat, though.
the people of
They
this
have it to
country.
pay white
And they
coat.
have it to pay white coat and the consultants. So they tell you one thing, but they do another. And they're always trying to use these phrases and speak above the average
Yes.
person so that it sounds pretty, and they don't understand. But essentially, you are putting Barbadian taxpayers, exposing them to higher interest rates, which means now that the government could possibly have to raise taxes to pay these loans. Another thing about the policy of the government is that you have heard in 2018 that they did a debt restructuring. And for the debt restructuring process, the National Insurance Scheme was hit for $1.3 billion.
Correct.
That is workers in this country.
Yes.
In 2022, I think they did a debt to nature swap, which again hit the National Insurance Scheme
Correct.
for $300 million. In 2024, they did a debt to climate swap, which hit the National Insurance Scheme for another $300 million. So that is close to $2 billion that taxpayers, persons living in this country,
Poor people.
poor people
And it's fun.
have to take a hit on. They have to work longer. They have to pay more national insurance
right.
benefits every month. However, here comes the government on a road show and then gives a gift to outside investors of 8%.
8%.
When local investors here, which are the National Insurance Scheme, the workers of this country, had to take hits, moving from 6% to 4%, all fancy footwork.
Yes.
But here you are now awarding a small group of people that we've never seen in our lives, a group of institutions that probably never even give anything to Barbados. They're going to get 8% to write off debt that is under 4% and around 6.5% when the government claims that the economy is doing well.
Well said.
I think you hit one of the questions I was going to ask. I would like you to expand on it. Do you foresee further hardship for Barbados as a result of this additional
Strong anticipates increase.
because it is a substantial loan.
Yes.
Do you foresee maybe increasing taxes or additional
Yes.
hardship as a result?
Right. So you could take it.
Yes,
You could
yes,
take it.
yes. During his address this week to the Parliament,
Yes.
Minister Strawn he promised that taxes will increase. He didn't say within what period, but he said that it's a distinct possibility. I'm not quoting it precisely, but he referred
More
to
than
the
once.
possibility, and more than the possibility, the probability that taxes will be increased.
Now the government is in a challenging position, and what the practice has become, it is apparent that once principal payments become due, they're refinanced.
Mhm.
In other words, the debt obligation of the country does not go away, but they're shifting it from current to the future.
Correct.
And that is why the leader of the opposition is saying that our primary school children, those unborn,
That's
will
right.
have to carry this debt.
Mhm.
So we're in no better position. The government came to office and they said that the debt profile for Barbados, we had about $15 to $16 million in debt. Today we have $15 to $16 million in debt. After all the restructurings, after all the debt for nature swaps, the debt for climate swaps, the refinancing. So we're in the exact same position, even worse, because we've not been paying down on our obligations as a government. And that is the policy of this Barbados Labour Party government, to kick the can down the road. And some other future government, some other generation will have to pay, or have to figure out how to pay.
Yes.
Are there any additional questions from the media? All right, if not, we will like to thank you for joining us this morning for our press conference. And we look forward and we thank our presenters this morning, Leader of the Opposition, Ralph Thorne, Senator Ryan Walters, and again, we welcome our candidate for Christchurch Central, Mr. Quincy Jones. And thank you for joining us, all of you in Barbados and the diaspora. And we look forward to hearing the response to those urgent questions, because crime is important and we need to have the police being able to fight crime on a fair grounding, and their pay is important. So thank you for joining us. Have a good day.